So welcome all for today blocks revision. So today I want us to look on decision making. I want us to look at two topics, decision making and then the cost forecasting or the forecasting and correlation. So let's start with the decision making. They want us to go directly to our past papers. So we're looking at decision making. Just a quick recap on what entails decision making. So I want you to go through the steps in decision making, and we see that in decision making, one, you need to identify the objective. Once you identify the objective, you identify all the available options. Once you identify the available options, then you determine all the possible outcomes. To get the option and the outcomes, then you can gather data for both the options and the outcomes. And then from there, you develop what you call a payoff table. Payoff table. Remember, I said that payoff means the profit. So that's a thing you need to note, that payoff means the profit. Then you also said that we have two types of decision. For the types of decisions, number one, we said we have what we call the single stage decision. And then number two, we have the multiple or multi-stage decision. Those were the two types of decision. Then for the single stage decision, we see that it's evaluated using the payoff table. But for the multiple stage decision, it's evaluated using decision tree. That's the difference between the two. For the single stage and the multiple decision. And then we see that for the single stage, this is where one outcome becomes final and conclusive. But for the multiple stage, this is where an outcome gives rise to another outcome. Then we also looked at the environment of decision making. And we see that we have four major environments. One was the environment of certainty. Then we say that we have environment of uncertainty. Then we had environment of risk. And also we had environment of competition. So those were the environment in decision making. And then in each, I gave you the various methods you can use to evaluate decision. For example, environment of uncertainty. For uncertainty, this one you don't require to make any decision because in this case, the outcome is well known in advance. For uncertainty, we said we have a method you can use such as maximax, Maximin, mini, Laplace, Howix. And environment of risk, we say that we use EMV and EOL. And then we say that an environment of competition, that's where we apply the game theory. We apply the game theory. Good. So now with that, let's do a question from the past paper. So open with me November 2019, question 5A. November 2019, question 5A. November 2019, question 5A. So you're told that a businessman has three alternatives open to him, each of which can be followed by any of the 5 payoff conditional possible events in millions of shillings as given below. So we have alternative A, B, C, and then you have the outcome. You have event 1 to event 5. Required, advise the businessman on the best alternative under. So you are given all those criterion. So now using those criterion, so we start with the first one, which is the max mean. So in this case, already you are given the payoff table, so you don't have to develop the payoff table because you're already given the payoff table. So you are to advise the business on the best alternative. So number one, we are to use the Maximin. Yeah, Maximin law. And the Maximin, you take the maximum of the minimum. So start with the minimum. And in this case, we have three alternatives. It's either A, B, or C. So it's the maximum of the minimum. So you take the minimum. So for alternative A, the minimum payoff we have is negative 12. For B, the minimum we have is negative 6. And then for C, the minimum we have it's 0. We have already have the minimums. And then it's the maximum of the minimums. Once we have the minimum, you select the maximum, and the maximum here we have it's 0. So that means in this case, you should adopt alternative C. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, you have to use the maxi law or max criterion. So between A, B, and C, so this means is the maximum of the maximum. So you take the maximum. For alternative A, the maximum we have is 6. For B, the maximum we have is 16. And then for C, the maximum we have is 12. And then in this case, we are taking the maximum of the maximum. So already have the maximum, then you select the maximum. In this case, the maximum will be 16. So in this case, you should go with option B. Remember, we said that maxi and mini, they are applied when the decision maker is optimistic. Then for the maximin or the minimax, they are applied when the decision maker is pessimistic. Good. Let's go to number 3. Number 3, you are to use the Howix criterion, assuming the degree of optimism is 0.6. So number 3, we use the Howix. And we say that under Howix, you take alpha times the best payoff. You add 1 minus alpha, you multiply by the worst payoff. That's the formula. So A, B, C, where alpha in this case is the coefficient of optimism, and you're given the coefficient of optimism is 0.6. Then you multiply by the best payoff. For the alternative A, go for alternative A, which was the best payoff. The best payoff was 6. For B, the best payoff is 16. And for C, the best payoff is 12. And then you add 1 minus alpha. If alpha is 0.6, that means 1 minus alpha is 0.4. And then you multiply by the worst payoff. The worst payoff, that's the minimum. So let's start with the alternative A. Alternative A, the minimum we have is negative 12. B, the minimum or the worst payoff is negative 6. And for C, we have it's 0. So with that, let's compute. We have it's negative 1.2. Here we have 7.2. Here we have 7.2. So in this case, once you have the, we have the 2, you take the maximum, and the maximum is either B or C. So you can select any, either B or C. And then lastly, number 4, Laplace criterion. Number 4, we are to use the Laplace. And we say that the Laplace is the same as the average. So between A, B, and C, you get the average of the payoffs. So for alternative A, we had 6. You add 2, you add negative 2, you add negative 12, you add 4, then you divide by 5. And then for B, it's minus 6, minus 3, plus 10. You divide by 5. And then for C, we have 12. You add 8, 4, 0, 6. And then you divide by 5. You get the average. So that's negative 6. That's 2. You have negative 0.4. Then we have 117. 17 divided by 5. You have 3.4. 24. That is 32. You have 6.4. And then you select the highest for the Laplace. Remember you are getting the average of the profit. So therefore you take the one with the highest average profit. In that case, they adopt strategy C. Strategy C. Good. So you have that. You can take a screenshot of that.